Well, I guess like everything that we've done in this class, it comes down to the real core fundamentals of Photoshop and sort of focusing on them because that's what counts. You can do almost anything if you understand the fundamentals, and the rest of the other stuff is really fluff as far as I'm concerned. So, for example, you just saw how to use the patch tool over here, and it's a fantastic tool. You know, I circled this windsurfer and just moved that selection right over, and it did a pretty good job of filling that in. Missed a little right there, and I was off on the horizon line there, but ultimately it's pretty decent in terms of how it works. But now that I put the windsurfer back, what I really want to emphasize here, and this is kind of the mantra of all retouch, is that all these auto select tools, you know, the patch tool, the spot healing brush, even the healing brush, these do the blending for you. So it makes retouch really easy. But there's always going to be that time, and it happens quite often, where these tools don't work. Usually when it's next to an area that's of a really dissimilar color, or lots of times when you're on the edge of something, this tool breaks down because it works automatically and it can't think for you. So ultimately what you have to do is go back to the old way of trying to patch manually as opposed to patch using this tool, which is an automatic blend and feather. So could people do retouch before these patch tools, spot healing brush? Of course. So go 10 steps back in Photoshop, and there were still ways to do it, but you needed to know how to do it manually. So I want to walk you through how to create the effect that this patch tool does, but do it by hand so that when the patch tool doesn't work, you'll know how to do it. First of all, never work on your background. Throughout this project, you should always, as much as possible, try and either work on a separate layer or a copy layer. So in this case, I'm going to hold down Command J like we've done many times before and make a copy layer so that I could retreat back to that layer later if I make a mistake. And instead of using the patch tool, I'm going to come up here and get the lasso tool. And at this point, you always want to look at your options bar here. And I have a feather typed in of 2 pixels, and I'm going to keep that. That's going to give me like a slight little gradient on the edge of my selection. And then what I'm going to do is make a circle around the windsurfer. Now I'm not using the automatic patch tool, so this is just giving me sort of a shape that I need to get. And remember that if you click outside when you've used the lasso tool, you'll deselect. You'll lose your marching ants. But if I actually click inside the marching ants, I can move this selection over anywhere I want, just like I did with the patch tool. Now I barely have enough space here, but I'm going to try and take that little bit right there. And in this case, what I'm going to do is do the old Command J to copy this onto its own layer, just what's in my selection area. I'm also going to look over here at my layers, and this is going to be important when you're doing retouch, is to always look over and see what layer you're on if you're about to copy and paste something. So in this case, I'm going to Command J, which means, actually let me go up into it the old way, new layer via copy, Command J, but I'm using the shortcut, Command J. And you'll see what I've got is just this little piece here with a slight feather on it. I'm going to take that piece, and of course your layer order matters here. So I've got it on the top. I'll get the Move tool, letter V, and as you can see, I'm manually moving this piece over, just like the patch tool did, but it does it automatically. And I can, when I'm on the Move tool, use the arrows to kind of align this. And you can see that it probably needs to be a little darker. I don't know if you could see that on your screen, but it's a little lighter in this area. I'm literally going to go up and just do an adjustment right on that patch. So I'm going image adjust levels as opposed to an adjustment over on the right. I don't really want a separate layer at this point. And so what I'm going to do is just darken that down to the appropriate color. Maybe bring in a little more black. If you hear a squeaking noise, it's because Olive got a new toy and she's interrupting my video. Okay, so now I could play with that for a while to really get that to match. Next, what I'm going to do, and this hopefully is familiar from assignment 2, is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add a mask to that little patch layer. And then I'm going to get the brush tool. And if you look up top here, the opacity is at 63%. And I think that's good. I actually want to sort of chip away at this and do a kind of hand blending. So I'm painting and blending at 63%. And I can always come back in and take away more. So see, there's the tip of the windsurfer right there. And actually, I don't like those trees. So I'm just blending here. So now I'm going to have to bring that back in. But actually, what I might do instead is get rid of that because the trees weren't matching up exactly. So 63%. And I'm going to lower that opacity even more. Zoom in. And kind of what I'm doing is I'm really just feathering this selection. And again, I'm doing it by hand. And it is so important to know how to do this instead of just using automatic tools all the time. So, and I can bounce back and forth between white and black. So in case I take too much away, I can put some back. So I'm digging into this sail right here. And what I'm doing really is kind of getting rid of some of those trees that weren't quite working out. And then what I'll do is I'll take another patch from the sky. You'll see in a second. Okay, so I'm pretty much blended. And let me show you what I've done. That's what I did to sort of replicate that patching and blending. Is you can see that the lighter gray is giving me a lower opacity, and then this is blocking. The more dark it is, the more it's going to block. So this is up by the sail, and this is around the edges. So I'll put that back. Okay, now I've got to deal with this sail, and what I'm going to do is get the lasso tool again and kind of get a rough estimate of how much I want to take. Click in the middle and bring it into the area as close as possible to the object itself. You can see that if I go over here to the left, the sky gets lighter, and if I come over here to the right, the sky gets darker. So one thing when you're doing any kind of patching or cloning for that matter, you want to stay as close to the source material as possible. So in this case, I'm going to do Command J, but just let me warn you because this happens quite often. People tend to do Command J on whatever the last layer they've used is. And let me turn off the eyeballs here and you could see. If I Command J right now, all I'm going to get is this tiny little bit right down here. And so people make this mistake quite often. I need to bounce back to my original layer down here so that I'm taking sky from a place where there's actually is sky. And do another Command J. And if you look at my layers, you can see that I've got, in fact, let me turn it off so you could see. I now have this little piece beneath the other little piece. And this is going to work out nicely because then I'll get the move tool here and I can just slide that little bit of sky right in underneath. And hopefully that works out to be enough. Let's check it out. Whoops, I missed it. I guess I should have had that on. Okay, right there. Okay, now I've got a little mismatch because I picked up a little bit of sail there. I also want to lighten this up. I mean, you can see it's great to have those automatic tools because you can see how much work this is. Okay, so I'm lightening. Click OK. And this area actually, okay, and I'm going to do a layer mask again. So I've got a little chunk of the sky plus a layer mask. Now I'm going to, I have 33%. You got to always be checking up here to see what you're doing. 33, whoops, too far. Hit the X, bring that back. And I'm just doing a little bit of blending here. And now I still have this little problem. Kind of want to keep that tree. In fact, I'm going to go much smaller here. Now I'm going to hit X because I don't know if you can see, but I revealed a little too much there. Okay, now at this point, not bad. I still see the wake of the sailboat too, which is something I'm going to have to address. I see a little bit something over here, and for all of this I'm actually going to do some regular cloning. So literally I'll get the old rubber stamp clone tool and clone in some of these areas. But here's where that one becomes tricky, is now I've got all these different layers. I can do a number of things. When I'm on the clone stamp tool, and this is key, this will mess you up if you don't understand this. It has all these option bar settings, and one of the most important one is kind of hidden over on the side here, which says, where do you sample from? Are you sampling from the current layer, and below? Whoops, my phone's ringing. Hang on. You know what? I'll answer it. Hang on. Hi, can I call you back? I'll call you right back. I'm making a video for my class. Okay, bye. See, excuse me, I was interrupted. I don't want to start this video over again, so sorry guys. It was my mom. Anyway, where was I? Oh, one thing I can do is say current layer and below, or all layers. Now in this case, if you look at my layers, it's going to clone every layer here. In this case, it's actually okay. But let's say I was having problems. This is the point where if you're satisfied with what you've got, you really want to use that merge down option. So let me bring this over so you can see it within the bandwidth. Is up here, click, and go to merge down. What this is doing is just bringing that all down to my copy layer. So when you start to clone and you start to get all of these little pieces, make sure you've really done a good job and you've completed it, and then you could start to merge down, because if you start thinking about all layers, current layers, at some point that starts to become really confusing. So now I'm just going to clone from the current layer, and then I can go in here and hold down Option, which we've done before, and kind of patch in here. And also another good thing is if you're trying to blend is to turn down your opacity up here. And so I'm going to actually clone. I'm not using a brush. I'm cloning at 53%, which works really great for blending. So I'm coming in here, and you can see those crosshairs. That's where I'm picking up from. See how I'm picking up way out there? I wanted to add a little more blue sky. Where else? Oh, I saw a little bit of the sailboat sail, the red sail kind of hiding under here. So I'm just kind of layering a little more color. And then down in here there was some weirdness. A little bit of the boat showing. A little bit right there. And again, you got to remember I'm cloning at a low percentage, which can create some blurring. So now I want to turn it up so I don't have, because you could get a really, I've seen people cloning at a low percentage and they get a really fuzzy edge when there's a lot of detail and distinction in the area. So you have to be careful that you're not over blurring. So take a look at that. I mean, I did it by hand. Here's before, here's after. I could use a little more work in the sky here, as opposed to using the auto tool. And then you might say to yourself, well, then why not use the auto tool? And I'm telling you, there's going to be this moment where that tool, if that's the only one you learn, is just going to not function properly, and then you're stuck and you don't know what to do. So this is called patching the old way. It used to be called a weave, like you're weaving a blanket. And it really involves taking many pieces, layering them together, and then using the old layer mask to blend them in with low opacity. So try it on the next project, and I'll call my mom back now. Bye.